Hi, we are at the end of round 2 of my mushroom scrubby, and I just joined with a slip stitch to the first half double crochet. So now we are ready to begin round 3. So we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to work 2 half double crochets into that same joining stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, the same joining stitch, yarn over, bring that yarn through and up, and then yarn over and go through all 3 loops on your hook, and that's your first half double crochet. We're going to do one more in that same joining stitch. So now we just did 2 half double crochets in that same joining stitch. I'm going to take that loop and make it bigger and remove my hook, and now this is where we want to take that contrasting color yarn. So I'm going to use my white. And what we want to do is mark that third loop of the stitch that we just worked into. So if you turn your work, you can see that this is the third loop because we just worked into the top of this stitch with our 2 half double crochets, which required us to work over the 2 loops, which left that third loop open, which is this third loop right here. So we want to place a stitch marker right there into that third loop. So take your crochet hook and put your hook in there and grab that contrasting yarn and just pull that contrasting yarn through that third loop like so, and just leave it like that for now. And then we're going to go ahead and replace our crochet hook into that loop, pull that working yarn so the loop on our hook is at a normal width, and then continue to work your 2 half double crochets into each stitch around. So again, here's our next stitch. We're going to work 2 half double crochets. So you'll see I'm inserting my hook underneath those 2 loops, which leaves that third loop right here unworked. So I'm just going to go ahead and work my 2 half double crochets, and I will see you back after I get to the end. And don't join, we'll join together. So complete your 2 half double crochets into each stitch, and I'll see you guys back at the end. I'm at the end of round 3. I just did my last 2 half double crochets. I want to pull that loop up that's on my hook so I don't lose that stitch we just did. And then I'm going to take my hook out of there, and I'm going to turn my work over. And this is the base right here that we just worked our half double crochets into. And right here you can see is that third loop that we didn't work into. So I'm going to insert my hook underneath that third loop and grab one end of that contrasting color yarn and pull it through like that. So now I have the first stitch marked and the last one marked of the third loop that we wanted. And now I'm just going to tie those 2 together just with an overhand knot like this. Not too tight, but just 2 little knots just so they don't go anywhere, and that's just there to help us for when we do our stem of the mushroom cap. And I'm just going to leave it like that. And now I'm going to replace my hook into that loop, pull that working yarn so that loop's not too big on my hook, and then we're just going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch to that first half double crochet that we did. And you should have a total of 20 half double crochets. And we have our first and last stitch of that round marked, and we'll need that for a reference when we work on our stem. So go ahead and do that. And then round 4, you're just going to chain 1 and then half double crochet into that same joining stitch. And then you're going to work 1 half double crochet into each stitch around. And I will see you guys back at the end of this round to help you with the 5th round. I just completed round 4, and I joined with a slip stitch to that first half double crochet that we did. And now for round 5, we're going to work a spike stitch. And if you're looking at your round 4, you'll see at the base of each stitch is right there. So right there is the base, and that is where we're going to be working our spike stitch in. So now we're going to chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. This is our first joining stitch. And right here, if you take your hook and you go from the top to the bottom, right there is that base of that joining stitch. So you're going to insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, bring that yarn through and up, and you're going to bring it all the way up to the top of where you're currently working, and then yarn over and go through those 2 loops. So you basically did a single crochet. The only difference is where you inserted your hook. So we're inserting our hook into the base of this here row that we just completed. So here's our row 4. We're going into the base right there, inserting our hook, yarning over and creating a spike stitch and bringing that all the way up. And we're just working 1 spike stitch into each of those stitches all the way around into the base of each of those stitches. So you should have a total of 20 spike stitches at the end of this round. So you're just inserting your hook right there at the base, yarning over, bringing it all the way up, and then yarning over and going through both loops. And this is creating that spike stitch. And just continue to do that around, and then go ahead and join with a slip stitch to the first one and fasten off. And that is your mushroom cap. And I will see you guys back and show you how to join your white yarn for your stem. Okay, I'm at the last stitch, and I did not join with a slip stitch to the first spike stitch. I thought I would show you another alternative. My pattern just tells you to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. However, if you like to do an invisible join, I'm going to show you how I like to do an invisible join. So what I did is I just cut my tail and left a long enough tail to weave in and to fasten it off and weave in, I'm sorry there. Anyways, so now I threaded that yarn tail, and now I'm going to take my yarn needle, and this is that first stitch. So I'm going to insert my needle underneath both loops from the front to the back and pull that through. And then I'm going to insert my needle again right to that same stitch that the yarn is coming out of, but I'm going to go from the front to the back underneath that back loop only. And I'm just going to pull it back there, and you'll see that it looks like a stitch after we do that, and then you can't tell where you joined. So it's kind of cool. So you can either join with a slip stitch or do an invisible join. It's whatever your preference is. So if you're watching the video, you can see this technique of joining invisible, or else you can just join with a slip stitch as the pattern states. Either way is fine. So now this is your right side of your mushroom cap, and this is your wrong side, your inside, because we have our rows right here marked. So we're just going to make sure, and you want to weave in your end here, which I will do later. But now we want to start our stem. So you're going to take your crochet hook, and you want to make sure you start with a slip knot on your hook. And I have my white yarn. So now with your mushroom inside looking at you, and if you look closely, you can see that your loop is around that first third loop right here. So I'm going to insert my hook right there underneath that same loop that we marked, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch. So I have my slip knot on my hook, I inserted my hook into that same marked stitch. I'm going to yarn over and bring that yarn through that marked stitch, and I'm going to continue and bring it through the loop that is on my hook. So that's joining with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain one. That's not going to count as a stitch. So I'm just going to kind of like pinch it over a little bit, and then I'm going to work my half double crochet into that same joining stitch that we just did. So I'm going to yarn over and go into that same joining stitch and work my half double crochet. And then we're going to work a half double crochet into each of those third loops all the way around until we get to that last one that's marked. And if you're looking at your project, you can see each of those third loops pretty easily. So you're just going to work a half double crochet into each of those third loops. Do not take your stitch marker out yet because you want to make sure you get into that last one. So we're just working a half double crochet into those third loops. And we're doing that all the way around. Just kind of like squish my little mushroom cap a little. Makes it a little easier to see. I'm just working into that third loop all the way around. And when you're looking at that third loop, you can see right there, that's the base of those half double crochets that we had done into the top of the stitch. And now we're just working into that third loop, a half double crochet. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 10 half double crochets. There's our next one. And there's our next one. And then right there's our next one, and you can see that our stitch marker is wrapped around there, so we know that that's our last one. So I'm going to take that loop up, and I want to make sure I have my 10 half double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I do. So now I'm just going to go ahead and untie this knot that I have where my stitch marker is, and remove that stitch marker because we do not need that stitch marker anymore. We just needed it there for our guide for when we joined our contrasting color for the stem. We wanted to make sure that we went into the right stitches. So now we can just take that stitch marker out. And now we're just going to go ahead and replace our hook into that loop and join with a slip stitch to that first half double crochet that we did in the beginning there. So right there. And we're just working a slip stitch in there. And then you're going to chain one and work a half double crochet into that same joining stitch, and you're going to do that into each stitch around, work a half double crochet. And at the end of this round, if you're not working your tail around these stitches, I recommend that you weave in this tail before you go any further after this round. And I will see you guys back at the end of round 8 to do round 9 with you. Okay, we are at the end of round 8. You should have a total of 14 stitches. And now we want to join from the back to our first half double crochet with a slip stitch. So make sure your working yarn is in the back there. you take your crochet hook and pull up that loop on your hook a little bit. That way you don't lose that stitch that you just did. Take your crochet hook, and let me zoom in a little bit. Insert your crochet hook from the back to the front underneath the 2 loops of your first stitch. And then turn your work, grab that loop, and go ahead and put it back on your crochet hook and pull it through, and then go ahead and pull it nice and tight. And then you're going to pull that working yarn, and now I'm probably too close, so let me zoom out. And you're going to pull that working yarn because you do not want this loop on your hook to be that big. You want it to be at a normal size. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and turn my work back. And then we're going to chain 1. That chain 1 is not going to count as a stitch. And now we're going to be working this round into the 3rd loop of each of those stitches around. So we're going to be working a single crochet decrease, and all stitches are different. This is how we're going to be doing the single crochet decrease for this pattern of mine, and we're going to be working the single crochet decrease over 2 stitches. So to do the single crochet decrease for this pattern, you're going to insert your hook into the 3rd loop of your same joining stitch. So that's this one right here. You're going to yarn over, bring that yarn through and up. And now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to insert your hook into the next 3rd loop of your next stitch. You're going to yarn over, bring that yarn through that stitch, and keep going through the 2 loops on your hook. And that's your first single crochet decrease. And we want to do that for a total of 7 times, and that was our first one. So we're going to do it 6 more times. So there's our next 3rd loop. And if you're not sure if you're working in the 3rd loop, if you look at your stitch here, you can see you've got 1, 2, and then right there's your 3rd loop. So insert your hook into that 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through and up, 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next one, yarn over, bring it through, and keep going through the 2 loops on your hook. And that's our second decrease. And again, insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring it through and up. Insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through, and keep going through the 2 loops that are on your hook. And again, insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through and up. You have 2 loops. Insert your hook into the next one, yarn over, bring that through, and keep going through the 2 loops that are on your hook. And again, insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through and up. You have 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through, and keep going through the 2 loops that are on your hook. And again, insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring it through and up. You have 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next one, yarn over, bring that through, and keep going through the 2 loops that are on your hook. And then we have 2 stitches left. Insert your hook into the next one, 3rd loop, yarn over, bring it through and up. Insert your hook into the next 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that through the stitch, and keep going through the 2 loops on your hook. And now you should have 7 stitches around, and you're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch that you did. And now you're just going to fasten off And you want to make sure you leave a long enough tail because you're going to weave this in and out of those last 7 stitches and cinch it up. So we're just going to go ahead and leave like a 4 to 6 inch tail, I guess. Grab your yarn needle. I'm going to pull that tail through the loop on my hook and tighten it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread that tail with my yarn needle. And then looking at this, you can see I'm just going to go into the first stitch that we joined, into the next one, and I'm just going in and out all the way around. So that's my second one. Here's my third. My fourth. Oops. My fifth one. My sixth. And my seventh. That brings me right back to the beginning there. So now after I do that, I just kind of hold it there and I just pull it nice and tight to cinch it nice and closed. So once I do that, I just kind of go in here and weave it in, whoops, back and forth, and do my normal weave in and fasten it off however you like to weave it in. I'm not going to bore you guys, but I would do my normal weave in, and then after I do that, I kind of bring it up the stem and pull it up. Like so. And then this just kind of goes like that. And of course I would fasten this off, but I am going to go ahead and weave that in some more off camera. And I still have that mushroom cap part to weave in, but that is it. And then you push your mushroom cap top down, and there's your beautiful mushroom scrubby. Perfect for those water, those baby bottles, or just those tall glasses. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know.